Well, who saw that one coming? Newcastle winning their first trophy since before Indiana Jones, Die Hard, and E.T. hit the big screens. The only thing similar is that people were watching in black and white when they last won a trophy. Haha, you like that? Since the controversial ownership change to the PIF, Toon fans have been dreaming of getting their hands on a trophy, and it came close a couple of years ago in the League Cup, losing 2-0 to Ten Hag's Manchester United. Fast forward 2 years and Eddie Howe has been the man to break that drought that has carried on for far too long, considering the size of Newcastle. But beating certain Premier League winners, Liverpool made it the perfect day for the Geordies. Now, as much as the improved amounts of investment they've received under their new owners, in comparison to the Mike Ashley era, will have been a contributing factor, we can't deny it, it should not be understated that the coaching performance by Eddie Howe over the last few years has been incredible. The levels of tactical consistency he has produced with this team, while improving players who were in, let's face it, meme status to club icons, is nothing short of spectacular. Eddie Howe has definitely earned the title of being the best English coach out there right now, and we're going to discuss what makes him so great. Newcastle build up in a 4-3-3, with the fullbacks wide, with the single pivot between them, the 2-8s higher up, with the front three very wide. Newcastle's build-up is a mixture of short and direct, with their build-up play rotated amongst the defensive four, with a look to play around the defensive shape of the opposition, or to play through to the single pivot, which in recent months we've seen the emergence of Sandro Tonali in this role, where he has excelled, showing fantastic technical qualities with taking the ball on the half-turn to progress the play forward. The one quality that this Newcastle team hasn't had is a goalkeeper that is comfortable with this distribution. Nick Pope is a really good shot stopper, but he's not a modern goalkeeper. Dubravka is more of a modern goalkeeper and has played a number of games this season and does offer that quality a little bit more than Pope. Not amazing, but passable, but he isn't as good a shot stopper as Pope is. The next step is surely a goalkeeper that is a level up and can combine both these qualities. Newcastle will look to initially progress the ball through the previously spoken about methods, but the moment they're facing pressure, they'll look to go long or go backwards to a player that has a clearer sight of one of the attacking players to hit directly. In the front three, which is usually Isaac, Gordon and Murphy, they have an incredibly fast-paced front three that will look to receive the ball in space in behind, especially Anthony Gordon, who would look to drive at the fullback and get in behind to create or fashion out a chance for himself. Well, Isaac will also look to do the same, get in behind. He has the pace and first touch to take the ball under control and burst forward. But a quality that makes him one of the world's best strikers currently is that he is also capable of dropping in alongside the 2-8 as an extra option to play through an opponent's midfield, whether that's in space or under the pressure of the defender engaging. He has elite ball control to ride the challenge and turn the presser and to drive with the ball forward and get him behind that way, manufacturing chances for himself at an elite level, and then uses top level finishing, an array of quality ways of striking a ball to take a strike from almost anywhere in the opponent's third, or play through the likes of Anthony Gordon and Jacob Murphy, and maybe even link up with Joe Linton and Bruno G, who now could have more space to play in, with Isaac bringing a marker potentially closer to him. And with Joe Linton, they have a physical unit capable of driving the ball forward, and in Bruno Guimaraes, they have a great passer of the ball to play forward and unlock an opponent's defence. While talking about their ability to go direct from the back, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about Fabian Schär's direct passing. A fantastically underrated long-range passer, and places it perfectly, weights it as good as you like for one of those forward players to receive and run onto and progress forward. Anthony Gordon being the main focus of the direction that Newcastle like to play through, he is capable of attacking his fullback, taking the ball down the line or moving inside with it, driving towards the centre of the pitch, and depending on his actions, he will have the support of an overlapping or an underlapping run. If he's looking to move inside, which is his more common move, Lewis Hall will look to overlap and hold the width on the left-hand side, and this overload has caused problems for many teams in England, as both are very high-level wide creators, with Lewis Hall's delivery resulting in a number of dangerous attacks for Newcastle. If Gordon looks to remain wide, however, then Joe Linton could look to receive the ball in the half space, making an underlapping run, being a powerful runner and a physically dominant player capable of holding onto the ball in these positions and finding an angle to link up with players in dangerous areas. These same situations can happen on the right-hand side, but while Murphy is a fantastic runner with exceptional pace, he doesn't have the same unpredictable dribbling ability that Gordon has, so he will look to receive the ball maybe in behind the defensive line to produce a flat cross across the box. Having Bruno G playing just inside of him helps facilitate that. Newcastle will look to attack directly, but if they can't, they look to initially sustain attacks with the same shape they build up in a 4-3-3. But will quickly transition into a 3-2-5 shape by pushing one of the fullbacks higher to hold width on that side. And it can be either side, but generally, again, more likely to be the left-hand side. It mostly depends on the situation of the Newcastle attack at that time. And the remaining fullback will tuck in to form a back three, which gives Newcastle a good foundation from which to build their attacks. Tonali will sit in as the pivot and can be joined by Bruno G to help progress the attacks, both of them offering a strong technical base to break down teams that defend in a low block, having incredible passing ranges to move the ball from side to side and find those openings. The winger on the side of the fullback that has moved forward will tuck into the half space to offer an attacking midfield option alongside Joe Linton. Again, as spoken about before, this is typically Anthony Gordon, as he is more comfortable receiving the ball in central areas than Jacob Murphy is. Bruno can also move into that central attacking midfield zones. Isaac, as spoken about before, can also drop in and play as an extra man. And this means that the opposition backline is incredibly overloaded by a good number of Newcastle players as they look to flood the box and create as much uncertainty in that area as they possibly can. It also means that if they need to quickly move the ball from side to side, then the player holding width could have all the space to drive with the ball into the box or get an accurate cross away, with Isaac again looking to make a movement in the box to get on the end of it, demonstrating a high variety and level of finishing, all with the likes of Joe Linton and Bruno G crashing into the box to get on the end of it too. They don't take those serious attacking opportunities lightly, Newcastle. They will attack with the intent to score goals. But now we'll move on to the defensive stage, and the physicality of Newcastle is at its most important here, as Newcastle are a team that look to press high and aggressively, and the physical nature of this team makes them brilliant at winning their duels. Their original pressing shape under Howe was a 4-1-4-1, with the striker pressing one of the two centre-backs. Now they are completely man-to-man, with Anthony Gordon moving to the right centre-back of the opposition, with Joe Linton, instead of Lewis Hall, going to press the right-back. This is for an important purpose, which I will talk about in a second. The beauty of this Newcastle team in these high-pressing situations is the aggression and stamina they display in their pressing, which makes it so hard for an opposition to play out, and as a result, are forced to go long to their forward line. But this is where Newcastle are well prepared. Their centre-backs are aerial monsters. Sven Botman fills this profile well and is probably Newcastle's best centre-back, but has had a torrid time with injuries over the last 12 to 18 months, meaning that Cher and League Cup final hero Dan Burn are the two starting centre-backs, and you fancy them to head away every ball that goes along towards them. But it would be wrong for me not to mention that they both lack a great deal of pace, so when the ball goes past them, that's where this team could be exploited, but there's a flaw to every defensive game plan. Now, why it's important that the fullbacks are deeper, pressing the opposition's wingers, is because Dan Burn and Fabian Schär are both centre-backs that engage higher up against an extra midfielder, preventing Newcastle from being numerically disadvantaged, because as the nature of high-pressing teams, it just takes one player to become free or not be at the races or just have those small margins where a player loses half a second and they get exposed. But Dan Burn and Cher do their absolute best to equal the numbers. Generally it'll be Dan Burn, but Fabian Schär has shown this quality as well. And when that press is beaten, Newcastle do react and drop back into a very flat 4-5-1 shape that also changes as it drops deeper, but I won't get too ahead of myself there. The lines will be fairly flat in this shape, as I've just said, with the wingers dropping in alongside the midfield three, but will also look to engage if a pass goes backwards on that side, and they will use this as a pressing trigger with Isaac pressing with them, looking to win the ball back and launch a fast-paced counter-attack through this forward three. Where Newcastle can get exploited is that sometimes they can leave a little bit too much space between defensive and midfield lines. As mentioned for the third time now, those lines are flat, meaning if a team moves the ball quick enough, there is space there to be exploited. And while the midfield do react and try and win the ball back when it's in between the lines, the timing is important. Where this defensive shape this season has levelled up is that in games where they are dealing with prolonged periods of not having the ball, they'll move from a 4-5-1 and drop into a 5-4-1. This is to combat against an opposition's shape, as the majority of teams now attack with a line of 5 in their forward line. In earlier stages of the season, this came from Joe Linton dropping into the defensive line to help defend against a specific opposition threat. I should really use this moment to give Joe Linton credit, as he has had games where he has had about 3 or 4 different jobs that he's had to commit to in every defensive phase, and he does them all to an excellent level. He must be a dream for Eddie Howe to have at his disposal, and you certainly notice it when he's not in the team. In recent months, however, Jacob Murphy has been the player dropping in at right back, allowing Livramento to move inside, making it a back 5. I know that Murphy can sometimes be a little bit unreliable with his end product, and with Newcastle's level you could argue they need a player that has the on-the-ball quality to match where they're trying to reach, but the work Jacob Murphy does down that right flank to contribute to the high press while dropping into the deepest line of defence is nothing short of quality, and displays the hard-working qualities that have made this Newcastle team so good and so difficult to play against. And the reality is that a top-level winger that is of what you would describe as a Champions League quality player just won't really want to do that work that Jacob Murphy does at a very consistent level. As spoken about before, the aerial dominance of the centre-backs with the support of the full-backs coming inside means that they're a hard team to compete against in the box, whether that's in the air or even just generally on the ground at a physical level. And all that being said, the tweaks Eddie Howe made to win the Geordies the League Cup has shown that he has qualities to adapt in massive games, which is something I've personally been very critical of when it comes to him for a long time. This is a moment that Newcastle fans will remember for a long time to come, and full credit to you. Enjoy the international break and bleed this country dry, Brown Ale. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Anything from this team that you've noticed that I didn't touch on, I'd love to hear. In a bit, lads.